Okay. So Leuven, probably some of you know, but it's a university city close to Brussels with 100,000 inhabitants and some over 50,000 students. And a city in which already in 2013, very formally, the local government decided to collaborate on complex societal challenges in equal representation with businesses, knowledge institutions, and citizens and civic society. And so in 2013, when Leuven 2030 was founded, that was, as far as I'm concerned, a game changer, because it's the time when the local government said these complex societal challenges, it's not only up to the local government to put itself behind the wheel and decide what is the right strategy and ask everyone to collaborate. It's in fact a responsibility for all stakeholders in the community to decide upon the strategy. And so it was politically pretty courageous to put the search for a right climate transition strategy, to put that within the Leuven 2030 network, in which all key stakeholders are equally represented, and to ask this group, together with local government, to decide upon the strategy and about its implementation. Which is interesting because it started from one hand from a sense of responsibility, and it also ignited a sense of responsibility and of ownership, because everyone is equally represented and is co-owner of the strategy. It activates distributed leadership, and that is one of the essential elements I would like to convey today. I think it's important to state that whatever complex societal challenge we face, we are blessed with the university around us and all its spin-offs. So every step we take, we make sure that it is science-based. And also, as far as the climate transition is concerned, we are inspired day after day by what science brings us, which enables us to work on the right priorities to move forward. And as the mayor said, and that is also, I believe, or I experience a game changer, is that you group people and stakeholders around a very clear shared mission. Everyone has his or her agenda, has his or her role to play in the community, and that can be very different, and it can be based on different values. But if you can be explicit about what you have in common, which is a certain dot on the horizon, and whatever reason you want it to work, if you share with each other that that's the way forward, it enables you to group the right forces, the right passion, the right engagement to move forward more rapidly. And so this shared urban mission that's been explicitly put forward is the health and well-being of our community. And so with as many citizens and stakeholders as possible, we try to collaborate to improve the health and well-being. That is the goal, that's the dot on the horizon. And we have learned over the past 3 years that requires all kinds of innovation. That we've understood very clearly that business as usual will not enable us to safeguard or even improve the health and well-being of our community. So we need to be innovative about the way we move forward. And we see 3 kinds of innovations that we need on an urban level to move forward structurally and sustainably on that health and well-being path. And it is, first of all, it's all about technological innovation. We need technological innovation to move forward, but it's also about governance and social innovation. It's about new ways of collaborating, new ways of engaging each other. And it's also about climate innovation, because the clock is ticking and we will never get there in time if we continue to move forward incrementally by improving what we already know, by doing it better or more rapidly. That will never be sufficient. We need to do that, but beside the incremental path, we need to be more radical, and that's the climate innovation part. And so what we've learned in Leuven and what we're trying to further structure in our community is that these kind of innovations need to infect each other and need to accelerate the spinning wheel that you see presented. And so it's pretty unique and reassuring also that in the Leuven 2030 network, we've over 600 members now. It's a lot of citizens, engaged citizens, but it's also a lot of organizations and institutions, and they are so diverse. They have different agendas, different roles to play, yet they say this climate neutral future that is necessary to work on the health and well-being of our community. That's what we have in common. That's what we share as a belief and a conviction. And so you see the logos of many of these organizations, which are cultural organizations, social organizations, ecological organizations, financial institutions, knowledge institutions, developers, architectural firms, communication firms, you name it. It's very diverse, but they say by their membership, we share the engagement to move forward on this transition path. And Leuven 2030 is an organization with a general assembly. All the members are in there, with a board of directors and with an executive management, in which every time these stakeholders are equally represented. And that's one of the unique models that the mayor was talking about. In many cities, there's collaboration amongst all stakeholders, but in Leuven, and we hope that many others would want to follow, we do that structurally in a juridical organization with official mandates. And for example, in the board of directors, we have 3 people who represent the citizens. We have 3 people who represent the knowledge institutions. We have 3 people who represent business, 3 people who represent the city government. And so these 15 people in total, they debate on what is the right strategy for our community to move forward. And that is an interesting form of innovation that's not technological, but that's a governance innovation. We've seen in Leuven, so we started off in 2013, there was a growing engagement, growing stories, growing initiatives. We got the European Green Leaf Award in 2018, and so things were moving nicely. There was good atmosphere around what we were doing together. Yet, when we measured our carbon emissions, we saw that they were not really going down. And there's still very much 20% of uncertainty on the numbers, even if it's the 21st century. But yet, within this 20% of uncertainty, we knew that we were not dropping down our emissions fast enough, which was very disappointing, because we thought there's so much going on. Why can't we see the numbers, following? And so that's why our board of directors said, you need to make up a roadmap with the experts of the university, of the city administration, of local offices and consultancy offices. You have to make a roadmap to make clear where is the gap between the enthusiasm that we see today and what, from a scientific point of view, needs to be done. And this document was made up by 70 people, experts that all did this in their free time, just because they feel responsible and they feel ownership towards that ambition. And so this document is online consultable. It talks about 13 programs and 80 project clusters that are not surprising. It's about all scope of emissions. It's about building renovation. It's about sustainable mobility, about energy consumption and production, about sustainable consumption, about climate adaptation, of course. And it's also about transversal challenges on financing, on monitoring. And so it's an inspiring document. It's an impressive document too, because it shows that even for Leuven, who is a city with very good cards, it will not be a walk in the park to get climate neutral. We as a community have endless choices to make year after year if we want to make that future a reality. And Leuven has an interesting scale, has a progressive government, has the university, has an innovative ecosystem, has many highly educated citizens. So a lot of a very interesting starting position on an urban scale to move forward. And yet the roadmap shows us that it will be intense to get there. The roadmap shows us on the left, the pie chart shows what the emissions were in 2010, where you see in yellow, it's mobility emissions. It takes also into account flights and production of cars and buses and trucks. So it's the whole mobility scope, and in blue, on the right bottom corner, the light blue and the dark blue, that's everything that's building related. It's about energy consumption of our houses and our schools and our offices, but also the material use when we renovate. So it's huge. And you see that by 2050, it should be 20 times smaller, the emissions that come with these sectors. And so that shows very clearly that it will never be sufficient if we just focus on mobility or buildings. We will have to find attractive alternatives for every choice that we make from morning till evening. The choices we make about how we dress ourselves, how we move, how we live, what we eat. We will have to find together attractive alternatives, socially just alternatives that safeguard the comfort that we know, but that are far less addicted to the burning of fossil fuels. And so this document was presented on a sold-out conference in 2019, and we brought the 15 most important stakeholders on stage in front of the sold-out conference, in front of the press, and they have undersigned the document, stating, me, with my company, with the policy of my company, I agree that this is the way forward. This roadmap shows where we need to go, and I will, consult my own policy and adapt it to what this roadmap puts forward. And these are huge institutions and organizations that have agreed to undersign. It's the city of Leuven, of course, it's the University of Leuven, of course, it's IMEC that you might know, it's the university hospitals, it's AB InBev, the global brewery, it's the public transport company, big players that have undersigned the document and that were surprised by the climate youth that went on stage at that point to support their signatures and to state that this way forward is of crucial importance to that generation. It's important for our generation, but it's even crucial to the generation that you see on the left on stage. So that was a very powerful moment. And then, of course, you have that document. You see where the gap is between what is taken up and what should be done. It's huge, this gap. And so the next question is, okay, we now know what we need to do, but who's going to do it? And so that's when we brought in the Snowflake model to build our engine in a structural way, where in blue in the center, it's kind of the Leuven 2030 team who looked for a circle of leaders around them. And then each of those leaders of the first circle are invited to activate leadership around them. And every new activated leader in the community has the invitation to activate leadership around him or her. And that should be like a snowflake effect that activates leadership throughout the whole community, carrying forward this climate transition. And so this first circle, it was 18 people that we found that were freed by their employers to work on the implementation of the roadmap because the ownership of the document is broad. It's not the document of the city government, it's the document of the whole community. And that makes a crucial difference. It's a governance innovative choice that makes a crucial difference in how you can engage people to collaborate with you in a free spirit. This document, this transition, and it's very comparable to other cities, requires 1,000 up to 3,000 euro of investment per year per person. So if you want to make that future possible, that's the requirement we need. It's a lot, but we know that 75% of this amount of money is already, circulating in our community, but is not spent on the future that will bring us more health and well-being. So it's partially the challenges about how can we change our spendings and allocate the money that we spend to the future that we want. And so we've been working with material economics on the business case of this climate transition. What does this mean from an economic point of view if we want to make that a future a reality? How can this be economically attractive? And so they have studied that this economic business case for Leuven overall as a return on investment of even 30% if you monetize benefits on health and well-being, for example. But even if you wouldn't, and that's the 18% in the light green, that's the monetized benefits on health and well-being. But even if you just look at the red and the dark green, you see that even there, there's a small return on investment. What is, of course, one of the big issues, that the upfront investments are huge. So between now and 2030, the community should invest upfront this whole 1.2 billion euros to get there. And the return on investment would be spread out up until 2050. So we need to have a lot of time before we gain it back from a financial point of view. And that is one of the complex issues, besides the fact that a lot of times the partner that invests the money is not the partner that gets the return afterwards. So it's financially wise very, very complex. But the interesting part is, if you look overall to the question, it's a very easy, positive business case, and we should not hesitate for a moment. In the end of 2019, we were selected by EIT Climate Kick, which is a European expertise center, together with 9 other European cities. And then it was enlarged with 5 other cities in the Eastern Europe, to work on more radical climate action through a common belief and conviction that we will not get there, as I said, by moving forward incrementally and doing step by step. That is not enough. We need to be radical. Radical in a way that it is politically viable, that people's mindsets can evolve so that we don't lose everyone we need. And so, radical in a way that works. So that was the search. And here you see the 15 European cities that were selected for this program, which are a bit all over the place, and which form a very interesting European city network of cities that are experimenting with radical actions that are from time to time technological, but that can also be governance innovations. And this has had a very important impact on Leuven 2030, because we were an organization that worked on creating awareness, on communicating on the challenge, on initiating, boosting projects. And we learned through the Climate Kick program that will never be sufficient, and that we need to work on a systemic level. We need to challenge the systems that today define what is possible and what is impossible. So our role is to enlarge the playing field, to challenge the context, and to work on the systems. And that has been a game changer for us too. It has challenged us in 2020 a lot. It's been very heavy, intellectually challenging also, but it has helped us to move forward. And so together with Climate Kick and its partners, we have defined a portfolio of strategic experiments that are always multi-layered and that combine different challenges in the same project. So it combines, for example, when you define a project that is strategic, it has a governance challenge, it has a regulatory challenge, it has a financing challenge, it has a technological challenge, and you combine it in a smart way, because that will enable to find a smarter solution that will help you accelerate, because it's a solution on multiple challenges at the same time. So it's a more anchored solution, and it will help you to learn on different fields at the same time. It's more complex, but once you find a solution, it helps you move forward. And so this systemic approach, as we call it, has challenged us, but is helping us move forward. And so these are just 3 of the identity cards that we made up on the portfolio experiments, which show what is the background of our experiments, what is the economic case, what are the relationships that are required, and on what components will we move forward, and what do we want to learn. So we are looking at these challenges from a very clear research perspective. We are very conscious about what we want to learn out of these experiments and how we can disseminate it into many other fields and places to accelerate the transition. And so one of these experiments was kicked off in February. It's about a borough in Leuven that is counting 30,000 inhabitants, and where we want to accelerate on the mobility transition and the climate adaptation at the same time, in a way that we engage citizens and we empower citizens at a whole new level. So we are working with citizens that are collaborating with the city administration on developing the policy. So it's not just share with me what you think, and we might consider it. And thank you for your inspiration. It is really collaborating on the policy that is being developed. And so that's a whole new way of engaging people, of empowering citizens to define how you want your public domain to transform in order to safeguard the health and well-being, or even to improve the health and well-being of everyone. But we have all sorts of experiments, strategic experiments in that portfolio. One of them is our experiment on growth hacking the climate transition. And it brings together knowledge from the creative marketing industry, from coding and automation, about behavioral psychology, about data and testing. And we bring together all these domains of expertise. And by collaborating on these fields of expertise with different experts, we are trying to be far more conversive with our communication. Our communication was always read, like, and share, social media, newsletter, website. And we want to use our communication as a lever for action. And so bringing together these kinds of expertise fields is another example of governance innovation that helps us leap forward and helps us be very smart about how we work with data in order to accelerate our transition. And another question that we have been tackling as a continuation on the material economics work was, okay, if we know that the urban climate transition can be economically viable, what is the requirement? If we want it to be a positive business case, what are the prerequisites? And so we have worked with Rebel Group from Antwerp to analyze with us what are the requirements if we want a positive business case of this transition. And so they worked with 5 basics for realistic business cases and 8 challenges for a positive business case that we are now trying to implement solutions to feed into these challenges and basics. For example, on the right corner, number 6, encouraging entrepreneurs to develop climate solutions. We have elaborated with the city of Leuven the City Transformation Fund, which is a fund that we are now developing together with the city, in which public and private money will be brought together and will be moved towards startups, towards entrepreneurs that want to develop business products and services that can accelerate the climate transition in Leuven and elsewhere. So we want to take, as a post-COVID measure, the city of Leuven said, we will launch this fund to financially support entrepreneurs, but the prerequisite is that they want to develop products and services that will help us forward on our mission towards that dot on the horizon. And that is, for example, an illustration of how we try, together with the city in this case, to challenge the context. By implementing a new financial mechanism, we try to create a context in which things are possible that were not enough facilitated in the current context. And that's just one illustration of how you can be innovative on an urban scale, on a community scale, to move forward in the right direction. And so this fund has 3 layers. It will bring us too far to go into detail. We will start with the support fund or the subsidy fund, but there will be a venture capital fund and there will be an infrastructure fund in which the citizens will be able to invest. And so even the citizens will be able to invest their money in a way that's more attractive than putting the money on the bank. And by investing in that infrastructure fund, they will be able to accelerate the implementation of trees, of loading infrastructure for electric cars, solar panels on roofs. And so it's a way of collaborating with your community in a very positive and socially just way. And so, and I'm almost finished with my presentation, I'm very reassured. I'm very happy that our mayor has said that he wants Leuven to be one of the city labs of Europe. I believe all cities are labs, and the fact that your government is willing to see your city as a place where we can experiment on what is needed to accelerate, where we can try out stuff, where we can fail, where we can learn. That is, in my experience, a tremendous blessing for the work and the mission that we see. And it's with great pride also that we do this in allyship with Europe. we have in big parts the same dot on the horizon, and we believe that cities and Europe are very interesting partners to collaborate and to move forward. But of course, also the intermediate policy levels, the regional policy levels, and the federal policy levels are of tremendous value too. But it was nice, and you see the partners like KU Leuven, like IMEC, like the city of Leuven, to, in partnership, be the first city in Europe to be ambassador of the European Climate Pact and state that we have to move forward. I'm ending the presentation just to show some examples of technological innovation too, because that's a form of innovation that we need too. We had the University of Leuven developing very important innovation on the hydrogen panels, and they work together with another Leuven partner, which is Comate, you see on the left corner, who translated this first prototype of the invention into something that is market-proof, that can be launched onto the market. And so this is one of the very nice examples of how you can collaborate with different partners structurally when you clearly know what is the dot on the horizon and what kind of innovations are needed to get there. We had a very interesting talk with AB InBev yesterday. They are working on very interesting innovations too, to become climate neutral by 2025, energy neutral. So there's huge things happening. And here we see a lot of local innovations by Leuven-based startups and businesses that develop stuff that feed into the climate transition, which is a roller coaster that we need to accelerate. And then to finalize, my last key takeaway is that we are working on a city transformation studio, which should be a physical place where we structurally bring together researchers and the whole innovative ecosystem together with entrepreneurs, startups, and the community to work on very explicit challenges that we face in our trajectory towards this climate neutral social innovation future. And we do that on several spaces already, but this studio should structure this ambition and should give a physical place where startups can be funded, can work on challenges that we face on the ground, boots on the ground, in the challenge that we face day after day. And so it's interesting that we bundle our forces on a very specific ambition, which increases the speed and the engagement. And so, as our mayor said, it's about innovation for the better. It's about innovation for all and with all. It's not about innovation for innovation's sake, but it's because we want to safeguard and even improve the health and well-being of our citizens. Thank you. I hope I sort of respected the time.
Yes, you did, Katrien. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, thank you for these interesting insights and you at several points in your talk you said major takeaways, but I couldn't catch up with all the takeaways that you were explaining. So there are many lessons learned from what is happening here in Leuven. Let me first start by saying that I'm a very proud citizen of this city, and I think with what you told here, that many people can understand. And I'm also a member of Leuven 2030, by the way. So I'm one of those people in the General Assembly. Anyway, okay. Maybe people in the audience have questions for Katrien. I've seen Italo, you were mentioning a couple of things in the chat. I give you the floor to ask the questions personally.
Yeah. Thank you, Katrien. I was really impressed. I'm not a citizen of Leuven, but I have to say, like Wim, I'm also proud of what you're achieving in Leuven. So Congratulations for that. I'm really impressed about the joint partnership that you have created for the climate changes and bringing towards the a goal for 2050, which is bold and quite ahead. But like you said, like you explained, you need to think long term if you want to make changes. But I'm curious. I'm not sure if I heard you mentioning the citizens, how they are involved in the process of bringing climate changes and all these industries together for 2050. Did you mention something about the citizens or not?
Yeah, they are one of the 5 categories that we work with and that are represented in our General Assembly, in our Board of Directors, in our Executive Committee. So they are a huge part of our organization, of our network. And for example, in the strategic experiment on Kesselo that I briefly touched, there, for example, they are invited, I think in only 48 hours, there were over 3,000 citizens of the borough of Kesselo that replied to an enquête, is that an English word?
Survey.
A survey, yes, on how they look at the quality of life of their surroundings and of the public space. And for example, we selected by an online algorithm 25 citizens to collaborate intensively on the policy, and they were selected based on diversity of age, of sex, of background, and so it's a very, very diverse panel of 25 citizens that can collaborate. It's very intense, so they have engaged tremendously to work with the city administration on the policy preparation. So that's one example of how citizens are involved. But for example, we are collaborating with the KU Leuven on the Leuven Cool Challenge, which is about citizen science, helping us to see the heat island effect in Leuven. And so we have invited, I think it was 60 citizens to put a weather station in their garden, which gives data in real time. You can now consult the online platform, and it shows the temperature in gardens, but also on squares, in parks, on very diverse locations. And so that's another example of how we engage citizens through citizen science in this case, to be part of the solution.
And those activities are co-sponsored jointly by industries and government.
Well, not always sponsored financially, but usually sponsored mentally by giving visibility to these initiatives, and it's all kinds of collaborations that we have. We have collaborations between the restaurants and engineering firms and the city of Leuven on drastic energy reduction. It's all kinds of collaborations that we have underneath that general umbrella of the Leuven 2030 network.
I'm impressed. I saw that even Malmo is doing something similar, which is a city in Sweden where I'm based. So I'm going to take a look at what they're doing. I'm really impressed. Congratulations.
That's cool, and thank you. And Malmo is one of the city networks we exchange with Malmo. It's a very inspiring place for Leuven.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Katrien, and thank you, Italo, for the discussion. Marco, you also have a question, I see, from Espo, okay. Which is, well, for the audience, maybe I can tell that when we were running for the capital of innovation, Espo was one of the competitors. Sorry to say that, Marco, but yeah.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Katrien, for the very interesting and challenging presentation. So linked actually to this innovation capital, since Espo, we have been several times among the finalists, but never number one. So now we were thinking, now it's our time, but then whatever, Leuven is there. So, but can you say that what has changed, or what do you think first? What was the key that you were picked as up as a winner? So what was really the breakthrough speciality of Leuven, but then as well how you have used that innovation capital? So because there's much that can be brought new elements in Leuven. Definitely, I've been there several times. I've met Wim. I don't know, not 100 times, but close to, and visited 20 times in Leuven personally, and so on. So, but it's quite hidden. Academic people know Leuven. Those who are in research, they know Leuven, and so on. And maybe it's those who go Brussels, so they've seen, okay, there is a Leuven sign somewhere, and so on. But you should really take a much stronger European and global role as well. So have you used this innovation capital?
Yeah, thank you, Marco, for both your questions. I think what might have made a difference in our application for the European Capital of Innovation is, I think that what has charmed the jury is the approach of distributed leadership, how we structurally collaborate in a way that it empowers people, it empowers citizens, it empowers stakeholders to take up an engagement. So this empowerment, which is also a form of strengthening democracy, has, in my opinion, been an important element that we put forward, as well as the fact that of the value-driven innovation. So that it is that the innovation that we look for is a combination of technological innovation, governance innovation, and climate innovation, and that these kind of innovations inspire each other and are more and more intertwined. They were more apart in the past, and they are coming closer and closer and are interacting more and more. And the fact that we have this clear shared dot on the horizon that is supported by a broad part of the community, and that everyone has his perspective on and knows, okay, how can I contribute? How can I do what is valuable to myself because of how I want to take up a role in the community? How can that be something that is meaningful for this shared dot that I support? And I think maybe those two elements have been appreciated especially. And I think that the iCapital title has helped us move forward in a very important way. So it's been a game changer, and it has helped us, for example, to move forward on this city transformation fund. It would never have been something that was researched and proclaimed if it wasn't for the title, I believe, or at least not so rapidly. So the fact that only early April in the post-COVID press conference, the city government stated we are going to work on this city transformation fund, this future fund, as a post-COVID measure to move forward in the right direction, to have a relaunch that is bringing us closer to the future that we've agreed upon, that we are striving for. And for example, the City Transformation Studio is also something that wants to structure what is already present in our community, but which can be levered or strengthened if we explicitly analyze it and structure it, so that researchers, the research capacity that we have, the intellectual capacity that we have, and the entrepreneurial capacity that we have, and the experiences of hurdles that we encounter every day in our search towards that transition, if we bring that structurally together, we will be able to activate the right talent at the right time and to accelerate. And so that's two very important consequences of the iCapital award for Leuven. And then we had the Innovation Festival End that was fully online at the end of April, last April. That has always also the baseline Innovate for the Better, and that brought together keynote speakers from all over the world to exchange on the challenge that we all face. All our communities are facing pretty similar challenges. And so that was another event that was strengthened by the iCapital nomination, because it was all framed through the iCapital award, and it has inspired the mayor and the initiative to let this initiative evolve from just an event once every 2 years into a structural collaboration through the City Transformation Studio, and to not make it just a festival once every 2 years, but to make it a structural element in how we move forward with our community. Yeah. But I don't know if that is helping as an answer.
I think so. Thank you very much, Katrien, and also Marco for your question. Is there anyone else in the audience who has a question for Katrien? I do have one, and it's related to something that you didn't emphasize that much, but it struck me because it was also mentioned on the first day by Paul van Den when we were talking about Leuven research and development at the university, and one of the messages that he was bringing is that when you talk about innovation or innovation culture, it takes time. Mm-hmm. And you were also mentioning that at a certain moment, for instance, when you were talking about the business case and the investments, that you need to be patient and you need to allow the time to make the impact that you want. And I was just wondering, citizens are well, we also have political parties, and they have to be re-elected, and they are maybe they do not have that time to wait until you can see the benefits and you can see the results of what you're doing. And then I was just wondering, how do you deal with that aspect? Okay, I know that politics and political parties is one thing, society is another thing, but I was just wondering how that how you make benefit of the time, or how do you are concerned about time?
That's a very interesting question. I think that the work that we do brings us in fields of tension the whole time. It's all about aspects that are not very easily combined. So, for example, the fact that everything that has to do with climate is very polarized, politically polarized, has been an invitation for us and our communication to talk less about emissions and climate disruption, and to talk more about what is behind that ambition, which is the health and well-being, which is a more universal, a more neutral value that it can be politically embraced by whatever party. So we have tried to have our narrative evolve towards that larger perspective than just the climate perspective. For example, that's one of the elements to have a sustainable liaison with the political sector. Concerning the timing, of course, that's tension also, because, for example, what we are doing within the portfolio of strategic experiments, that are processes that take time, and we start on these strategic experiments with a clear view on what we want to learn, but we are not sure. We will learn, but we are not sure that we will succeed in finding that solution that will be able to accelerate us. So we might fail on that aspect of the experiment. We will learn, and that will be successful anyway, but we might not find the solution that we are looking for. And that is something that, of course, from a political point of view, is very unattractive as a perspective. And so what we also see that there's tension between the city administration sometimes and the Leuven 2013 team, because the city administration has this urge and this pressure to move forward on very specific short-term results that can be explained and can be showed towards the public. Whilst we think that we know that we will never get there in time if we just focus on these short-term projects. We need to do that, but at the same time, we need to do programmatory systemic work, which is less visible, far less visible. And so the whole question that we are looking for day after day is how can we bring those two perspectives closer to each other, working project-based with a clear view on next steps and the visibility of those next steps, but at the same time doing so with a long-term perspective that is more systemic, that is more fed by research questions, by strategic learning challenges, than by immediate results that can be showcased. And so it's a very pertinent question, and it's something that we struggle with. It's one of the daily struggles. So I'm not shy to admit that that's a struggle.
I appreciate your honesty. Thank you.